Welcome back. So the next lesson or next set of lessons, we're going to see how to create a Pig Latin converter. Now, Pig Latin is a game that children play. They speak in a code in a way so that the children can understand each other, but the parents cannot. And the way it's usually done is they take a word like Python, for example. They take the first letter, put it at the end of the word, and then put pay to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this automatically. We're going to create a Python code that will translate everything we write into Pig Latin, and it's a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and get started with this. Okay, so first thing we have to do in section 2, we need to print out the phrase Pig Latin. And let's click run, and we see that was successfully printed to the console. In section 3, we need to query the user from the console to input some information. So if we look at the instructions, we want some input. I'm just going to right click and copy it and ask the user to input a word, and we're going to save it to a variable called original on line 4. So I'm going to go to line 4. I'm going to create a variable called original, and that variable is going to get its value from user input. So when we run the program, we will be prompted to input a word. So welcome to the Pig Latin translator. Enter a word. So let's test this out. You have to actually click in the console for it to accept anything. So I'm going to type hello and press enter, and it verified that it did indeed work. So in the next step 4, okay, you need to check the data that was entered. So for example, maybe nothing was entered. Maybe the user just simply pressed enter, and we're using the length function in order to determine this. So the instructions here, we need to create an if statement here. So let's go ahead and start an if statement. So if the length of original is greater than 0. So if it is greater than 0, okay, it says don't forget to include the colon at the end, then we need to do something. Let's read this. Don't forget to put this at the end of the if. If the string is actually some characters, then print the word. So we're just going to simply print out the word that the user had entered. So we will print out original. So we prompt a user to enter a word. We save it in a variable called original, and then we use the length function to test the word to see that it is in fact greater than 0. And I wrote this wrong. Let me write this again. Actually, you know what? Let me leave the mistake in there, because we can learn things by reading the errors in the console. So we need to get used to reading the console. Now, here's another thing we need to notice here, the indentation. Okay, we have a couple of spaces here, and that tells us that this print statement belongs to the if statement above it, or it's part of that if statement. So I'm going to press enter. Okay, and now, well, if let's say it's not greater than 0, then we need to do something else, and that is what the else part is. Now, the else and the if need to be in line. So when you press enter, Okay, it's not pushed all the way back. You need to hit the backspace a couple of times and then type the word else so that it is in line with if, and you can see that print is indented. So what does the else clause contain? The else clause, well, we're just simply going to print out a simple statement, a word to the console called empty. Now, it looks like we did a small mistake here on line 6. So let's go ahead and run it anyways and examine the error code. Oh, it didn't give us an error code. So, well, not yet. So let's go ahead and enter the word class. We click on the console. We type class, we press enter, and there is the error message. Now, it's important that we read this error message. We can see the error is in line code, and then we see type error. So we're going to come to line 6, examine it closely, and it looks like we didn't write the condition correctly. Okay, that's not how you determine length. The way you determine length is like that. len original. Okay, so that's going to give us a number. So if we had entered the word hello, hello has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters, and now we want to test it. Now we want to see that it is greater than 0. So let's go ahead and run it one more time. So run, so enter your word hello, and oops, I accidentally wrote hell. And it's writing the word back to me. So in this case, this part was evaluated. It is greater than 0. I'm going to run it one more time, but this time I'm just going to press 0. So there is no code entered, and instead it tells me empty as it should. So make sure you test your code and all the possible things that can be done with it. So in the next slide, okay, so we have everything we've typed up to now. Now we want to make sure what the user entered is just letters. It's alpha, and it doesn't have numbers or other non-letter characters. So that means we have to add more to our condition here, and we're going to use the isAlpha method. So watch how I do this. I'm going to go to line 6, and you can see on line 6 that we're testing the length. The length is greater than 0. So we didn't enter an empty string. Now we're going to add more with AND. Okay, remember the AND operator? So we're going to do another test on original, the word that was inputted, and we're going to apply the isAlpha method. Okay, so in this case, if numbers appear or something other than letters, it will proceed to empty. So let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so first let's use a valid word, one that it should work with, hello, and we press enter and we see it works. Let's run it again, and this time let's write something that's not valid. We'll write hello again, but then we'll enter some numbers in there as well and press enter, and it says empty. Let's try this one last time, and this time I'm going to enter symbols. Okay, so symbols are not allowed. Let's see how the isAlpha method handles symbols. We press enter, and again the isAlpha method will not accept it. It only accepts letters. So let's continue to the next part here, and we have a pop quiz. So what we're going to do now is we're going to test the code that we have written. Okay, we have the if clause with the length test, and the alpha test is alpha test. We print out what we have. Otherwise, we're just going to simply output the word empty. So it says test your code, put everything in there and convince yourself that it works. And in fact, we did this already, so we can proceed. To the next lesson. So we did this already. Press enter and it accepts it. So we go to the next lesson.